Welcome to the Golden Hinde, which is on Bankside. Now, this is a great thing to come and visit, and this is a replica of the original ship, but funnily enough has done more miles than Sir Francis Drake's Golden Hinde did way back between 1577 and 1580. So stay with us, we're going to give you a tour and tell you about some of the history. So this area at the back of the boat was the poop deck, and this is where Drake would paint seashores from here. And there were also here two swivel guns which were used when boarding other ships and also for the defence of the Golden Hinde. The original Golden Hinde, which was a warship, rotted unfortunately and was broken up, so designers spent many years researching to ensure that the new ship would be authentically constructed. Now, traditionally handcrafted, it was built in Devon in England and launched in 1973. And this galleon we're on here has actually circumnavigated the world and sailed over 100,000 miles, which is so many more than the original. Now, this Golden Hinde was crewed by a master, mate, cook and 10 to 12 deckhands. In Drake's day, there were at least 60 crew when the ship was at sea, and today's crew lived aboard just as Drake's men did, which is quite incredible because when we go down to the gun galley, or the gun deck a little bit later, you'll see how cramped it is, and that's where many people lived. It's absolutely incredible. They've done an amazing job with the restoration and with all the ropes and everything else that they've got here as well. And what I absolutely love is you can really feel like you are stepping back in time, because the way that you get around the boat, you've got to duck, dive and weave so you don't actually knock yourself out. So it's just one of those things you've got to be really, really conscious of. The other thing is there's always ongoing work, so you're going to hear banging and knocking, and parts of it will be closed whilst they're doing restoring. But it also means you've got people that are around, and you are encouraged to stop and ask questions to find out more about the Golden Hinde and its history from these people. And I could actually hear some of the people practicing, ready to give a presentation to a school group that was about to come on as well. So they really do encourage you to learn more about it. So it's just, again, it's just one of those little treasures in London not many people know about. Or if they do, they just walk past it and go, oh yeah, nice ship. Here we're coming into the forecastle, and we're going to go downstairs in just a second, but in here was the fighting station, which contained the bow chasers, long-range guns called falcons, and also was served as a workspace for skilled mariners such as the carpenter and also the sailmaker as well, and they used this space. And here we've got steps which then take us down to the gun deck. So we're going to go down into the gun deck, and one thing you'll notice is how small it is, their actual height, and people actually moved around in here. Now the average adult Elizabethan male stood at around 5 foot 6 inches. I'm 6'2", and I must admit I had to go around on my hands and knees, and interestingly enough they've got cushions on the floor so that you can. So the main armament for the ship was on this deck, and it had 14 minions, later to become known as minion drakes, and they all used a 5-pound shot with an accurate range to 3/4 of a mile with an effective range of 1.9 miles. And it took 4 well-trained men to load and fire the guns in 3 minutes. And believe it or not, these were also the living quarters for the sailors, who had to suffer poor conditions of extreme heat or cold, little ventilation, damp and wet decks, rank and crowded spaces. Now they usually only had one set of clothing and slept on the bare deck. Normally half the crew would be sleeping while the others attended to their duties, and young boys were also used for various tasks, including carrying powder for the guns, very dangerous in itself. Right, now we're down in the cargo hold. So the hold was used for storage, and down here you had food, water and supplies, and even unassembled pinnacles, which are small boats for scouting, boarding other vessels and messengers. Now, food was stored in barrels which consisted of salted and dried beef, fish and pork, dried beans, lentils, prunes, currants and other fruits. Supplies could also be supplemented from land sources. Now, liquids was also stored down here, which included water, which quickly went bad, vinegar, wine, beer and also port, and access was strictly controlled by the boatswain or the quartermaster, and no one at all was allowed to sleep down here. So in this area, Drake would have stored his cargo, which when they went to sea and they hit Spain and they took a lot of the gold and the silver from Spanish places, was stored down here, and it was stored under the waterline to help stabilise the ship. So here, we're right underneath the middle of the ship, and when you look up, you can see the big hatches which they would have put the goods through, the cargo. There you go, these would have opened and the cargo would have been sort of craned into here, pulleyed, and so that the people could move it around and then stack it within the ship. So it's also really important to remember that many people weren't allowed down here at all during the crossing and actually had to stay at this level, which is quite incredible because it is so small and so cramped as well. As I said earlier, from some of the stats that we've got, 30 people laying on the floor sleeping in here at one time is quite something to behold. How they all fitted in here, Lord alone knows. Now these wooden sculptures are knights' heads, which are wooden carved heads, which are believed to bring good luck to sailors when touched. Now, I've shown you the gun deck, but now as we go into this cabin here, the first part we come to is the armory, and that was used for storage of weapons including polearms, crossbows, longbows, cutlasses, chemical grenades, fire lances and arquebuses, which is a type of rifle. And the capstan here was used for hauling up the anchor, and the 20 or so officers and gentlemen would also sleep here on Brazil beds, which are hammocks, or straw pallets, which was a sack stuffed with straw. So on the gun deck I showed you where all the different people laid and went to sleep. Here we're about to go into the great cabin, which was an area for officers and gentlemen. Now it was used for eating, relaxing, planning strategies and recreation, and they played things like chess, dice and cards in here. Now the furniture that's on board was brought from the officers' homes. So you have the windows out to the back, and you can just imagine the great strategies being planned around this table. And how about this? Who do you think this belonged to? Yep, Francis Drake. Nothing like having your own chair with your own initials on the top of it. Really hope you're enjoying this, and if you are, you know what you need to do. Give the video a thumbs up, and also if you haven't subscribed to the channel, then please do. Now if you want more info on the Golden Hinde, you can go to their website, which is www.goldenhinde.co.uk, and you'll get lots more info there. And to think you'd have people up there in the crow's nest watching and keeping an eye out and shouting messages back down to relay anything that could be seen on the horizon. What I can't believe is all these years that the Golden Hinde has been here, docked in dry dock here just by Borough Market. This is the first time that I've been on here. Now I was really impressed, and in fact I spent quite a bit of time going round, just going backwards and forwards, so you're not limited to the amount of time that's on here. As I said, it's right by London Bridge and it's right by Borough Market, and actually the cost for an adult getting on to come and have a look at this is only £8. And as you can see, when I was doing it, I had a mixture of weather, sunshine, rain and a bit of everything, but actually I was well and truly covered. Now, it's certainly something that you can't do if you've got pushchairs or if you've got a disability where you need to be in a chair or in a scooter, so you're not going to be able to get around here. But if you can, then it is well worth doing, and just going back up and down the decks as many times as I did, it just gives you, well, it just helps you appreciate how people lived when they were going around the big seas. Absolutely incredible. I think the other thing to think of as well is whether this is a restoration or not, they have done an amazing job bringing the whole Golden Hinde to life. For me, it's just like the Cutty Sark, where it's just sitting there in the middle of London with everything modern and new around it, and yet you have a bit of history just sitting here waiting to be discovered. And actually what I've done is I've put a link to the Cutty Sark and our trip on board that, walking through the Cutty Sark itself over at Greenwich, up in the top right hand corner for you. So if you click on that video, it will take you to there, and then you can compare and contrast the two ships. And believe you me, the Cutty Sark is massive in comparison.